he accepts Shulchan Aruch as normative here, that we rule like RaMA, and yet he offers his own creative interpretation of the sugya, and that's
Yes.
very unique, among the Achronim, that he's doing what a lot of the Rishonim did. We saw last time in a lot. The Rishonim had all these different versions of what Adonai Yada means, and the TaZ doesn't rule like any of them and offers his own unique interpretation of what Adonai Yada means, and he develops this idea that there were two big Chasdei Hashem in the Purim story, two great acts of kindness from God. One was the downfall of Haman, and which obviously entailed with it the rescue of the Jewish people. And two was, after all that, and Achashverosh promotes Mordechai and gives him Haman's house and makes him this great person throughout all of the Persian Empire. Ar Haman, that refers to God's kindness to us in foiling Haman's plan. And Baruch Mordechai, that refers to God's kindness in allowing all the greatness that happened to Mordechai and the Jewish people afterwards. And what does Adonai Yada mean? Adonai Yada means you're at the point where you couldn't have, a theological discussion about which kindness from Hashem is greater.
So I want to add on this. Okay, so what he wrote is so strikingly different than everything else here that we have in our conversation, because the first half of it, he's not like directly talking practically, right? Because everybody else is trying to figure out they're trying to figure out the balance, how to manage this tension between Rava's statement in the Talmud and the story of Rabbah and Rebbe Zera. The first half, he doesn't bother with that at all. He's setting up this whole system about of trying to figure out Sheva, like how to praise, to be appreciative of what God has done for us. And that's the background, that's the push. And so then he says, once you have sort of that mechanic set up of the Shevach mechanic of appreciation, then he says, okay, you should drink. And then he's the way he works that out into with this force of, we should be so appreciative of God, and we got to get drunk. So like, how do they work together? Well, so he says, before you really actually get drunk, so you have to know, you have to give appreciation, and you have to really give it besimcha ad sheyavo lidei kach shelo yavchin. Oh, so you have to like give it at this like certain point, right? So you're already like not really knowing, but like not fully drunk. I don't know. It's an interest, right? How do you?
I mean, we saw it sort of, again, it echoes a lot of the Rishonim we saw in that they try to equate Adonai Yada with an inability to do some particular thing, some particular skill. And so we saw, and we'll see it echoed. We'll see some of these positions echoed in some of the Rishonim and some of the Achronim that we're about to cover. Is it about you can't do math or you can't recite poetry? And but the TaZ has his own unique idea that wasn't said in the Rishonim, that it's about, can you have these sophisticated theological discussions? And I don't know exactly like how does that compare to the other things, like in the process of drunkenness, at what point exactly do you reach the point where you can't have sophisticated theological discussions? I don't know.
But it's also in the process, like you're having these conversations, you're giving appreciation to God
exactly
as you're drinking, and you're increasing both until you somehow are just drunk. Like it just carries you forward.
You're supposed to be, like you said, you're supposed to be having the theological conversation while you're drinking, and you've reached the point where you're Yotze, I guess, when you can't have that conversation anymore.